All right, so for this video, what I just wanted to show you briefly was how to export CSS from Photoshop. I'm going to cover it briefly on Saturday next week, but if you can kind of watch this video ahead of time, which I will send out an email again and let you know that it is available, that will help. So I'm in Photoshop here right now, and this is the same file that we just finished with from the other exercise. And to export your CSS from this is very simple, just doing a right click on these and saying copy CSS. But I want to explain just a little bit about this. So your CSS is what's going to stylize all of this for you. And if you don't know what that is, it's cascading style sheets. And if you don't know what that is, that's what web designers use to actually get the website up and functioning and looking really beautiful and professional. So, you know, it's important once you get into this that you, if you have not taken HTML and CSS yet, that it's probably pretty crucial that you do that so that you understand kind of how this is being written, and then you can work in Photoshop accordingly. So I'm going to switch to an HTML document here. I have this just set up in Dreamweaver, but you can use any kind of an HTML editor that you want to use. And I did an inline in the document here. I did the CSS here that I put in here. And, you know, and a lot of times, I mean, for the most part, what you would do is an external style sheet, but this is internal, just so again, so I'm not bouncing back and forth and confusing everybody between style sheets. I also, in the body tag, so how the HTML is set up is you have your head, and inside of there goes, you know, all of your metadata, the title of the document, your style sheets if you want to do internal style sheets, and then that would be the end of the head. And then your body is the actual content of your website. And what I did was just kind of divide up just so I could quickly kind of put this CSS in here and you could see. So I just did a div tag that I typed down here. This is the CSS for the type. And of course, any of you that know HTML, you would know that putting in between your div tag here, that is the how you can contain the content for a website and section and doing sections and so on to configure that. The other thing that I just put here, and you probably wouldn't do it this way, you would probably do, say, a border or something like that. But I just wanted you to be able to see how the rectangles from that website that we used as the navigation bar in the background, just how those get configured and how they get inputted in here once you copy and paste, you know, the CSS in here. So anyway, here's the type, CSS, and then I just did this figure, which I'm going to set up and give it a class of that rectangle, which you'll see in a second here. All right, so I'm going to go back in here into my Photoshop document, and I'm going to start with kind of this text here so you can see. You know, before I do that, let me configure the background here and give a body tag here in the background for your CSS so that it is a darker color since that text is going to be white. So I'm going to go in my style sheet up here and put in a body style. So body, and then left curly brace, and I'll give it a background color of, say, a gray or something like that. Color. And we'll just do a gray. Hit return. So now you see that it's gray back here, and so I can kind of continue on. All right, now I'll go back to my Photoshop document, and I'm going to choose the Tours layer, which is where I have this text. And what I want to do is copy over the style for this text. So I'm just going to do a right click or I could do control click, either way, do copy CSS, and now that CSS is on my clipboard. So I'm going to go back to my HTML document, and underneath my style sheets here, that is going to be in the body because this type is sitting here in the body tag. And so, and you could put it to a new style sheet with div. And again, I don't want to be teaching HTML here, but after this, I'm going to put a semicolon here, and then we'll go ahead, hit return, and then paste that style sheet into here. Now, I don't want to do this class of tours, so I need to get rid of that, and I need to get rid of this bracket here. So all I'm doing is copying this. We didn't put a class of tours on here, and again, you could use class of tours and kind of rewrite this a little bit, but for the sake of this lesson that I'm trying to show you, I just wanted to do a quick CSS so you could see how this comes in. Now, if you notice, what it does is it gives this, however that was set up in Photoshop, it actually gives it an absolute position. So in other words, it automatically sets your left and your X and Y coordinates here, your top and so on. However that was set up in Photoshop, and you can remove that, and you probably would remove it because you don't necessarily want that in here. So I'm going to take that out. Now you see it's just going to automatically center it because it's centered here. And then I might go in and put a, top so that I can take it down from the top or something, and a margin top, or however I want to go in and kind of write that. But I could do a couple different ways, and put in, say, 40 pixels or something. And then, that'll kind of move it down there from the top a little bit here. You can see that it's kind of moved down there from the top. But anyway, that's the idea of it. You can go in and kind of then go in and set this up however you want to set it up. And stylize it however you want to stylize it, and so on. However you want to remove whatever information you need to remove to make sure that you might want to change this to left or something, that you didn't want it centered after you remove where everything is. You might want to put a padding, left on it so it takes it away from the left-hand side, that kind of thing. So you could do a padding hyphen left. And then put, I don't know, let's say 40 pixels, from the left or something. So you see, then it moves it in 40 pixels from the left. So anyway, it's that, you could do padding top or margin top or whatever. So anyway, that's kind of how that functions. Now I put this underneath the body. So in other words, everything now inside of the body, of course, is going to take on these properties. So it's probably not the way you want it, because you want to wrap them inside of, say, a div tag that you want to have a specific font color, font size on. But that's the idea of it. All right, let's look at that whole rectangle thing then. I'm going to go ahead back to Photoshop and copy the CSS for the rounded rectangles. So that's these here. And so I'm going to do a control click on this, or right click, copy CSS. And then I'm going to go back to my HTML document here, and I will go ahead and paste that CSS inside of here. So let's see, I want to do it right in here, I think. And so now I have my rounded rectangle here and so on. So just checking this, making sure this looks kind of how I want it to look, which it does. All right, but I don't have in my code here in the body, I don't have a rounded any kind of a rectangle or anything with a class. Period means class. So with a class of rounded underscore rectangle underscore 1. So what I want to do is go down here into my figure. And all I'm going to do, again, just for the sake of showing you real quick here how this kind of functions, you probably wouldn't put this on a figure, but you might, but It kind of depends, I guess, on how you want that to look. But we're going to give this, and I'm going to go up here and kind of copy this so I'm not typing in a whole bunch of stuff here, and I'm getting it exactly how it's written up there. So I'll go in here and say space class equals, and then paste that rounded rectangle in here, _1. And so now you see, I'll take my period out. And there you go. So now we have that rounded rectangle. Of course, you wouldn't, this is just solely for your style sheet to put the period in there to let it know it's a class style. But you're putting class equals right here, so you wouldn't have the period there. But anyway, there it is. So now you have, you know, that blue rectangle. Once again, what it's going to do is it's going to take on all of the properties of that. So if you don't want it to be, you know, left 198 pixels and the top at 98 pixels or something like that, and you want to change the width, let's say, maybe you want this to be, you know, 500 or something. So you can, you know, change it to 500. Or you want the height to be, you know, 500 or whatever. So, I mean, you know, you can go in and then alter your CSS and change that however you want. You know, maybe you don't want it left 198 pixels and you just don't want the left there at all. So, well, you can take that out and move it over and so on. Maybe you don't want the position to be absolute. But I mean, again, that would be, this isn't a, you know, CSS class. And so that would be something that you would need to go in and kind of take on and study if you haven't had the HTML and CSS before, so that you can get a handle on kind of what's going on here and know that as you're building your website, you can go into Photoshop after you get this whole layout done and designed and set up. Let me get back here to, where's my Photoshop? So as you get this whole layout completed, know that what you can do, you don't have to go in and, you know, painstakingly put in, you know, try and figure out what the CSS is for this, but instead just go in and copy it from here by doing your right click and then, you know, pasting it into your style sheet so that you have that. So all of this work that you do when you do your mock-ups and your layout and so on, you don't have to, again, you know, worry about repeating all of the work when you get into your actual HTML document. All you have to do is copy and paste it from here, and you've cut your work probably by 75%. So again, you can use Photoshop to do this whole layout. You know, you can even put in images and so on, and then just start laying it out in an HTML document and copy and paste the CSS from here, as opposed to, you know, trying to figure out what it is and handwriting it in the HTML and CSS. Okay, sorry, cough there. That's it for the CSS. Any questions, of course, drop me an email.